viewers, you're watching The Explosive Exclusive with me and Navika Kumar, and over the next 1 hour or so, we're going to give you the inside track on what really transpired overnight in the Galwan Valley that led to an unprecedented situation that we haven't witnessed across the LAC in 45 years. Navika, you have the details and of course you're getting live updates.
Well, it's very clear at this point in time that the situation at the moment seems pretty grim, because the information that we are getting is that there are 3 casualties that have been reported on the Indian side, but we're also getting to hear that these could escalate. These numbers could escalate, and talks still on at the Major General level that are happening at the position in Galwan Valley where this entire fracas took place. And at the moment, fact is that 18 hours have passed since this entire face-off scuffle really happened, and it's virtually been 11 hours since the conversation has been going on between the major generals, and we haven't had a breakthrough. We are getting breaking news at this point, and we have confirmation from the army that they are waiting to make another statement very soon. Remember, the last statement from the army came out at 13:08 hours this afternoon, and that was the second statement, because at 12:52 there was one statement, did not talk about the fact that there were casualties on the Chinese side. The second statement spoke about the casualties on the Chinese side, did not talk about the numbers, but that was also nearly about 5 hours ago. Since then we haven't heard any official word. Now we are being told the army is waiting for that Major General's meeting to get over. What we are also being told is that apart from stones that were thrown, the party that was seeing off the Chinese troops as per the agreement in the de-escalation agreement between the two sides, it was iron rods and stones that were pelted at the Indian party, which led to the loss of life, along with them falling into the river, and that is what has incensed Indian troops. And Rahul, what we are also being told is that there could have been on the Indian side almost around 800 to 850 soldiers, and probably an equal number from the other side in this scuffle. So clearly the army is still waiting for some sort of a breakthrough. We don't quite know what that breakthrough is, but the fact that there are more injured, the fact that the number of casualties could rise up is something that is being spoken about in the corridors of power under the breath.
Well, let me tell you, viewers, the topography of that area means that the Chinese are at a certain height advantage over the Indian troops, and therefore it becomes easy for them to roll down big rocks at the Indian patrolling party, and that's exactly what happened. The CEO was attacked, according to sources that I've been in touch with in the army. The CEO was attacked, singled out for attack by about 20 to 30 PLA soldiers. So he bore the brunt of it, fought his way, and of course there were several others from our side that really held their ground. They were in no mood to take even a step back. They held their ground, and therefore there are also casualties on, of course, the Chinese side. Now, big breaking news coming in. The Global Times quoting the PLA Western Theater Command spokesperson, saying that Tuesday Indian troops again crossed the line of actual control in the Galwan Valley region and purposely launched provocative attacks leading to severe clashes and casualties. So this is China trying to turn, viewers, in the international sphere the entire blame and the tables on India. So the Chinese playing once again devious games, trying to suggest that it was the Indians that did this, crossed the LAC onto the Galwan Valley region, which is held by China supposedly, and it is the Indian troops that are to blame for all of this, and also making a mention of casualties on both sides. So viewers, it is at least confirmed that the Chinese have suffered casualties. How many, we will perhaps know in a short period of time. It's difficult, as I told you, viewers, once teams withdraw, to assess the number of casualties. China, unlike India, is not a democracy. It's a communist state, a very closed communist state, and it's impossible virtually to get information out. But the fact is that the Chinese are rattled, the Chinese are trying to turn things around here and play victims, which tells you a lot really about what actually transpired.
Absolutely, and there are controlled information coming out, China making India out to be an aggressor, and at the moment the latest statement really saying that severe clashes and casualties. So they're terming this severe, which means the reports that we are getting of about 800 to 850 soldiers that could be engaged in this entire scuffle seem to be, in line with what the Chinese are saying at this moment. But clearly, they are putting the blame on India, calling Indians the aggressors.
And the head of the Western Theater Command of the PLA is a man who's a rising star within the Chinese army. His name is General Shuling. And General Shuling was the chief of staff at the former 54 Army Corps, an elite PLA fighting force known for its involvement in the crackdown on a Tibetan uprising in '59 and the suppression of the Tiananmen Square protest in 1989. So he's a trusted aide of that man who runs China right now, Xi Jinping.
And that's also the reason that you're seeing that 45 years of no casualties on the line of actual control is not a position that we can talk about today. 45 years of that position has been broken today with casualties on the Indian side, 3 officially declared, waiting for an official statement on the others. But at this time, General J.J. Singh, former army chief and former governor of Arunachal Pradesh, joining us here on Exclusive Explosive, and General J.J. Singh is the man who would know best how the Chinese really react to such a situation. General J.J. Singh, they're calling it a scuffle, they're calling it severe casualties, but they're also referring to this being a provocation coming from the Indian side, whereas we've heard quite the opposite. General J.J. Singh, what do you think really is the situation? And these talks that are going on at the military level, at the major general levels, have been now going on for over 11 hours. What is it that we are looking forward from these talks in terms of an update on the current situation on the ground?
Navika, first and foremost, the world has understood that China sometimes doesn't tell you the real facts. They tell pre-concocted stories. In this case, the initiative was from the Chinese. Shall we say, the intention of the Chinese was to divert the attention of the world towards the line of actual control. Secondly, the intention was to test India's readiness for a short, swift border skirmish, like with more forces, which they have done this time. Earlier, it used to be one patrol coming from their side and one patrol of ours. This time, they moved their guns, tanks, and heavy equipment along with the patrol. So there was a pattern which was different from the past. But India's reaction really surprised them. Instead of them surprising us, we have reacted very well, and our army has shown the Chinese that they will get a bloody nose if they go ahead with this misadventure. Now, the second point I want to make is that the Galwan river is not a river, really speaking. It's a number of streams which are dry most of the year. Only during once or twice a year when there is rain or when there is snowfall, there's some water in them. Now this joins the Shok river, along which a road is being made by India, which is almost finished, and that is joining with Daulat Beg Oldi, which is 30 kilometers or so short of the Karakoram Pass. Now this is troubling China. They are getting a little sensitive, they are getting a little anxious. Why India is doing this? Well, India has taken time to get its act together as far as border infrastructure is concerned, but we are now on the right track. And we will make border infrastructure
Absolutely,
in Arunachal
General,
also,
that's
in
the
Himachal
message,
also.
and the
because
Chinese
there
are getting
people
it
living
fair and
there.
square, and they're
They
getting it
need
from
to be
our
part of
soldiers that are going to not back off. General, stay with me. Inputs coming in. I want to go straight across to some of our reporters also on the ground to get a sense of really where this story is located. Srinjoy Chaudhary joins us. Srinjoy, a big meeting on now. And we're expecting some information coming in. Nikunj also right there and the scene of action. And of course, we have with us Pradeep, who has been standing guard pretty much since the morning in Jammu. I just want to go straight across to you, Srinjoy. What's the latest, first on the situation that developed overnight? The details, please.
Well, yes, what we are hearing is just this, that the Chinese were withdrawing because this had been decided upon by both sides. The Indian soldiers went to oversee the withdrawal. Well, while that was happening, as Navika rightly said, the CO was attacked by several Chinese soldiers. Now that is what set the whole thing up. And the attack was okay, no guns were used, no bullets were used, but iron rods were used, stones were used. So there was severe injuries, and we already know of 3 official deaths. What we also know is that several other soldiers who were there at that point have succumbed to their injuries. So the death toll could well go up by a little bit when the announcement is made in a little while. So it's not just 3 soldiers who have died, including an officer at a colonel level, but several other soldiers have also succumbed to their injuries. They were hit by rods, they were hit by stones, and they had just gone to oversee the withdrawal of the Chinese army from the areas where they should not have been. This was in the Galwan PP-14 area. That's really the first thing. Secondly, we are hearing a couple of statements will be made today. The MEA will make a statement today which will be a comprehensive explanation of India's position in this. And India will say very clearly that this is exactly what happened. This includes the attack on the CO by the Chinese soldiers. This is something that we are expecting either from the MEA statement or the army statement, which is also expected. If there is a CCS meeting, there is a possibility of a third statement coming out. But the important thing is that the Chinese side attacked the Indian side while they were just standing there seeing the troops withdraw. Now, why that happened is very hard to explain. But for whatever reason, there was some shouting to begin with, and then this attack happened. Now, iron rods. Now, why are soldiers on the line of actual control carrying iron rods? That's a question China should answer, because soldiers should not be carrying iron rods. Goons normally do. Now, stones were all there. They were just picked up and thrown at the Indian side. So there have been casualties, 3 we already know of, and what we are hearing that some more have succumbed to their injuries. So the number of soldiers who have fallen today is more than 3, is what we are going to hear. Rahul, it's a very unfortunate situation. What we are hearing is also that here this entire situation was proceeding as per
there is a lot of talk. There is a lot of talk that on the other side also there have been casualties on the Chinese side. Global Times editor-in-chief reported that 5 Chinese soldiers have also died. There are at least 11 others who are in a critical condition. What have we heard, about the casualties on the Chinese side, and are there any Indian soldiers that are missing right now? Is there any confirmation of that? Because there is news swirling around to that effect too.
Well, to answer your first question, Rahul, yes, the Chinese have admitted that there are casualties. So we don't know exactly how many casualties. Those numbers have been discussed here, 4, 5, 6. These are numbers that have been talked about. What the exact number of casualties, fatal casualties, injured, many there will be on both sides. As far as fatal casualties, the Indian side has said, let the Chinese come up and let them answer how many casualties they have suffered in the fighting. To answer your second question, yes, we have heard about missing soldiers. Now, we don't know exactly what the situation is. We know that the army report, the army statement that will come out very shortly will address that situation about missing soldiers.
Okay.
So that is something we have to wait for. Yes, there are missing soldiers, or there were missing soldiers. Now we can imagine there are fewer missing soldiers is what we are hearing.
Well, let me get in Nikunj, our internal security editor. And Nikunj, that really is the update that we are getting. Apart from the number of casualties which could go up, the fact is that there are reports of a few missing soldiers on both sides. Some numbers are putting these at around a dozen and a half. Any confirmation that you've been able to get? Is that what these prolonged negotiations between the major generals are, coming in from the area in Galwan Valley?
Well, Navika, it quite clearly seems so. The Ministry of Home Affairs, obviously, as I said, that as the administrator of those territories, is keeping a very close watch. The Home Minister is about to return any time. The Jammu and Kashmir desk is keeping a close watch because, remember, they are the ultimate administrators of these territories. But it looks, Navika, for sure at this point of time, 2 points I want to make. One, the negotiations are protracted, and that quite clearly is happening only because the situation on the ground is yet not fully disengaged, both in terms of men and in terms of weaponry that is available there. Remember, they may have fought with iron rods, bayonets, or whatever, stones, etc., but there is a deployment of heavy armament there. So the full disengagement quite clearly has not yet taken place. Point number 2 that I wish to make is that our soldiers have not lost their life in a soldierly battle. There is a complete unsoldierly conduct on the part of the Chinese. And that unsoldierly conduct is that when armies are retreating, the army that is standing guard is never attacked. In a deceitful manner, in a surreptitious manner, they have attacked the commanding officer, and they have attacked the officers leading that rear guard arrangement, watching over the Chinese retreat. Indian side was there under an agreement, and if you go back to the army chief's statement, General Narwane said that there's a meaningful disengagement taking place at Galwan River Valley, and that disengagement was in the full process, to which the Indians were standing guard under an agreement. And despite that agreement, while retreating, the Chinese had the temerity, and the Chinese had the deceit to attack. So this is completely unsoldierly conduct on the part of People's Liberation Army, which calls itself the largest standing army and is now led by one of the favorite generals in that region of the Chinese President Xi Jinping. This is not soldierly conduct. If our soldiers would have taken the bullet on their chest, if our soldiers would have died in a soldierly manner, one could have said that this is a flare-up which has gone out of hand. Because of the tense situation, men bearing arms can certainly be in that kind of a situation in some treacherous terrains. But this is deceit. This is not war. The Chinese have indulged in an act of deceit, and in a deceitful manner, they have been able to exact casualties. And that deceit should cost the Chinese dear, and that should be the entire attempt of the Indian political and military establishment from here on.
Well, very important updates coming in, Megha. We understand the Prime Minister's meeting with Chief Ministers on the COVID situation is over. Do you have any confirmation on whether there is a CCS, a Cabinet Committee on Security, that is on? Is the Prime Minister likely to have any meetings with the Raksha Mantri and the Home Minister later in the evening? Any updates coming in from where you are at 7 Lok Kalyan Marg?
Okay, so we haven't really heard about any CCS, Navika. There is no confirmation of the same at all. But let me tell you that since right now at the residence of the Defence Minister, you have both the CDS and the Army Chief. That briefing is on, and after that, the Raksha Mantri is expected to brief the Prime Minister. I'm also told that there will be a comprehensive briefing later in the day, so perhaps sometime in the evening that the Prime Minister will be comprehensively briefed not only by the Raksha Mantri, but all the the other stakeholders, which could actually here mean, you would have the tri-service chiefs, that maybe the CDS also does a briefing.
Well,
so Prime Minister
even as we are speaking, the CDS, General Bipin Rawat, has left Raksha Mantri's residence. From where you are, we would like to keep a watch if he comes to the Prime Minister's residence to brief him straight from here. But the fact is that his briefing with the Raksha Mantri just got over. That's the update, and maybe you can keep your eyes out for any cars approaching the Prime Minister's residence.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep an eye out for that, Navika, here, if at all he comes to brief the Prime Minister. That it can happen, because here the situation is such that, you are actually getting more and more inputs every half an hour, and the Prime Minister is being kept in the loop.
Well,
now,
I can tell you one thing. The time has come for clarity. We need answers now exactly as to what transpired overnight. A couple of lines won't do. That's the bottom line. We need information. India needs to know, deserves to know just how deceitfully China has actually acted, because the Chinese media is going into overdrive, trying to paint India into a villain, which is unacceptable, viewers. And I want to go across to Pradeep also. Pradeep, okay, Army Chief vehicle moving out of Rajnath Singh's vehicle. That's just happened about 3 or 4 minutes back. I want to go straight across to Mohit. Mohit, if you can hear us, that movement is just taking place. The Army Chief leaving the Defense Minister's residence right now. Mohit.
Well, absolutely. This is exactly what is happening at this particular point. Really, Rahul, there leaves the car of the Army Chief at this particular point. Before him, it was the Foreign Minister who had in fact left, and just before that, you had the CDS also leave. So obviously, what we can tell you right now is that the meeting which was going on, this crucial second meeting of the day, has finally ended at this particular point. The Defense Minister has in fact been told about what kind of a situation is currently prevailing out at the Galwan Valley, and this is an important meeting, because this comes especially after the fact that the Prime Minister's meeting with the Chief Ministers has ended, and definitely he would further want to take a stock of situation as to what exactly is the current situation, and to what extent has the current situation risen to, or for that matter tensed down, and everything perhaps has been briefed to the Defense Minister. We've been bringing to our viewers the same point right now, the fact that the Defense Ministry rather, or for that matter the MEA, would soon be releasing a statement, an official statement, talking about as to what exactly happened yesterday, what exactly happened, who are the transgressors, at the same time, what really transpired, if at all, what is the total number of Indian soldiers who have in fact been hurt, at the same time, what are the kind of casualties which have the Chinese side incurred as well. So everything would be possibly, given out in a statement very soon. But definitely what we can tell you from ground zero right here outside the Defense Minister's residence is the fact that this crucial meeting, which had been going on for almost 20 minutes, has finally ended.
We are awaiting details. The fact that the Chinese, Srinjoy told us, were there like thugs with iron rods suggests that this was predetermined, that this was a plan to ambush and attack. That's pretty clear. Thuggish behavior from China. I want to go across to Colonel RSN, Maruf Raza, and others who have joined the broadcast. Colonel RSN, a quick overview on this behavior by China and its attempt now to try and pin the blame on India.
I suppose Maruf sir hadn't got a chance, he waited for a long time last time. So can I just extend this courtesy to him?
Well,
he waited for a very
he's not
long
connected,
time.
Colonel Saab, he's not connected right now. We're going to try and bring him back into this. But go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
See, well, you had a diplomat in your previous discussion, and well, he was, he was suggesting caution and sobriety. Absolutely, we are all sober people. Where is the doubt? Where is the doubt? But there can be no two opinions about defending the country. Any country in this world. It's the entire defense machinery, its war machinery exists to defend the country. That is what the taxpayer is paying for.
Absolutely.
So therefore, there can be no two opinions about it. But as I say, and let me tell you, with great deal of, I have given enough talks on this. In the 1,000 years of history of India, this is one of the most critical moments. Now just analyze. I like you to analyze. I would like all the esteemed panelists to analyze that should you be found wanting, what will be the consequences? You have seen one Nepalese action today. Remember, it will be Maldives, even small countries. This is what had happened after 62.
Absolutely.
So the stakes are very very high.
Yes,
even the Nepalese.
Already Nepal is going on a tangent from India. But let me get in Gaurav Bhatia at this point. Gaurav Bhatia, it's been 18 hours since the end of this incident, which we were told ended at midnight yesterday. 18 hours and 11 hours of negotiation, and we still don't have a detailed statement. Gaurav Bhatia, at this point, clearly the country expects some briefing, some statement which can tell us what the exact situation is, and the clock is ticking.
Navika, first of all, the entire nation pays tribute to the three brave martyrs who've laid down their life for the country. And I must say that as a spokesperson of the BJP, it is my primary responsibility to ensure that the nation is assured that our borders are well protected. And we are in a position to ensure that China, if we speak to them, is spoken to from a position of strength, from a position where we are an equal. And let me say this, it started from the point when China never expected that a strong country like India will retaliate, but there were incursions. And immediately after the army witnessed that, they retaliated and ensured that China knows that we are here to protect every inch of our sacrosanct border. You said it has been 18 hours and a statement has not come out. I would only like to say one thing, Navika, that the entire nation has faith in the brave Indian Army and the government also. This is a situation where we need to be guarded also. We need to ensure that we only share information which is necessary, and the necessary information is already out in the media. The government has also shared it. So we should not jump to any conclusion.
Mr. Bhatia, look. Yes, obviously, a large number of people have voted for Prime Minister Modi, and I'm sure that he still enjoys support. But there are reasonable demands about the situation under which the Chinese have crossed the Rubicon. There is a reasonable demand by a large number of Indians to know how many casualties we have incurred and why is it taking so long to issue this statement. That's the simple, straightforward question, Mr. Bhatia. No one is questioning the integrity of the government or the bravery of our soldiers, who deserve answers, and also China to be put in its place.
Yeah, so Rahul, if I may say so, that the picture is still emerging. Right. And when the facts have been ascertained, when we have the clear numbers, the same would be shared with the entire country. But at this juncture, you will also appreciate the Indian Army, as we discuss this issue, is also ensuring that every inch of the border is protected. That is the priority of the government also.
There are no uncertainties about that. The bravery of our soldiers, the application of our soldiers, and the fact that they will not flinch from laying down their lives to protect every inch of Indian soil. That there is no doubt about. The fact of the matter is that we are at a sensitive and a very crucial juncture. We'll have to wait for when the government decides on the timing of the statement as soon as they are sure about what it involves. Well, while we'll wait for that, we'll take a short break. On the other side, we will give you details of what exactly is happening behind the scenes in the corridors of power. Well, breaking information that's just coming in. The Western Theater Commander's detailed statement says China always owns sovereignty over the Galwan Valley region, and the Indian border defense troops are inconsistent with their words and seriously violated the agreements both countries have reached. The consensus made during the army commander level talks and harmed the relations of the two militaries and the feelings of the two countries' peoples. Chinese People's Liberation Army Western Theater Command spokesperson Colonel Zhang Shuli has said this today. Now the question really is that since 1962, this has been a region in India's territory, and today history is sought to be rewritten by the Western Theater commanding
Navika,
officer.
Salami slicing tactics being employed by the Chinese trying to lay claim.
And General VP Malik, former army chief, joins the broadcast. General VP Malik, do you think once again this statement from China, earlier making India into an aggressor and now making the Galwan Valley as part of Chinese territory, is once again tactics not really to resolve the situation at this point?
Absolutely not, because it appears that they came with the whole very deliberate idea of carrying out salami slicing because they were not appreciating the construction of our road going to Daulat Beg Goldi and beyond that to Karakoram. And this time when they have come in, they have also been backed by their heavier weapons, which are there to support these troops which are in front. So obviously now they have, the way they have come out with their statement that they do not want India to construct this road, and they do not want India to own even this area that we have been in possession for such a long time. And there is a change, absolutely change in their stance as far as India is concerned. And it is quite obvious that as far as Ladakh is concerned now, that they feel that the northern part of Ladakh does not belong to India, and they have their own territorial interest in that.
General Malik, I also want to ask you, how should India address this from here on? There are large and differing views on this. What is your point of view?
Look, you have to look at it either at the localized level or at a strategic level. Now, that decision has to be taken by the CCS. It is quite obvious now that at the tactical level, the army will not be able to go beyond this unless they create some larger skirmish here in this area. And that can also escalate into other areas. But if the political authority is interested, then they will have to speak at their level. Today, the information reaches, straight away the information is available with the CCS. I think the decision has to be taken at the CCS level. Military has its limitation. As far as the military is concerned, they have been given a line of actual control which is supposed to be in our perception, and military has to defend that, whether they go fighting for it or whatever negotiations take place. But at the moment, if you leave it to the military, then they have very limited choice except to go for a fight.
Well, let me get in Captain Alok Bansal, Director of the India Foundation. Captain Alok Bansal, the fact of the matter is that now for 11.5 hours, the military level negotiations have been on. With the statement that General VP Malik has just made, do you think there are going to be limited tangible advantages that India is going to get from these talks, and these talks will now have to move to a political level?
See, talks are essential, and I think at this juncture we need not go for political level talks, because talks are going on at Major General levels. And firstly, we need to get a clearer picture as to what happened, because this particular incident, as was brought out, is a very, very shocking incident, because it was according to a planned withdrawal. The Chinese troops were supposed to dislocate from that place. They were supposed to withdraw, and it is at that point of time that this sort of an incident happens. So we need to get a clearer picture as to what happened, what has caused the casualties. We need to know that. But it is extremely shocking, and I think Government of India would give a firm resolve and in fact indicate to the Chinese that this is absolutely unacceptable. We need to get a clearer picture of the casualties on the Chinese side, and you would see that the immediate reaction has to be at the military level, and I think that is where the negotiations are going on. Because I think after this sort of a situation, Chinese must immediately withdraw.
Are you surprised, Captain Bansal, that the Chinese have acted in this manner, where after 45 years we are seeing violence?
Undoubtedly. See, when Chinese intruded at a number of places, it was a deliberate attempt, because I think that was meant for political signaling, which they were doing. But what happened yesterday night, to my mind, is an isolated, localized event. I think even Chinese would not have visualized that there would be casualties at this particular stage. Probably a local commander has taken something, or something has gone wrong somewhere. Because
is it a local commander's actions that are adventurous and misplaced, B.R. Deepak, or is this a larger plot by China to basically alter the status quo?
Yeah, right. I think we must understand that this is not one of the incidents, though it is very shocking. It is very grave, and according to the Western Command spokesperson Tang Shuili, it is still escalating. These are the words, So we don't know right now whether it is calmed down or not. So if it is continuing or not, that's why the clarity from the government is required at this point. But coming back, the status quo or status quo ante, or the entire situation at the line of actual control, I think it is not favorable to us at this point in time. Why? Because we don't have greater access the way the Chinese has greater access to the line of actual control, because until now they were having a free run across the line of actual control, and as we started to have our access by building these roads and feeder roads, so that has riled the Chinese PLA. But I think more than that, it is the reflection of the regional balance of power, which at this point in time is in the favor of China, and that is why we will see what is happening in neighborhood, whether it is Nepal, whether it is Sri Lanka, whether it is any other country in the neighborhood. So naturally, these countries, so they will be using China as a countervailing force. Now, why China, would like not to identify a line of actual control, going by the actual situation on the ground that favors them, And I think, unfortunately, India, as of now, we have been, stuck in all sort of these confidence-building measures which we have signed. I'm not negating the utility of these, but I think these are just code of conduct as far as China is concerned. And this is to manage the border, not to resolve the border. So therefore, I think the situation, as per our understanding, it is very, very grave. And the confidence-building measures which we have signed, really have a relook on them.
Okay, we've got to relook and reassess. Jaidev Ranade, former Additional Secretary of the RNAW, I just want to ask you, sir, on the back of this and the fact that the Chinese have also taken casualties, that's what we are being told by no less an authority than the Global Times editor-in-chief. And of course, there are references that have been made by the spokesperson of the Western Theater Command of the Chinese Army. How do you think China is going to respond to India?
Well, firstly, I would say that the manner in which the Chinese have gathered their forces and the manner in which they came, and I'm talking about early May, 5th, 6th, 7th May, it is not, in my estimation, only to stop construction at one point in a row. It is a larger objective that they have come with. That is the first point I'd like to make. The second is that the Chinese have so not
indicated figures of the casualties on their side. But though, of course, they have spoken about casualties on their side, informal channels from Beijing suggest that there were 5 people killed and 11 injured on the Chinese side. But it could be more, could be less, I'm not sure. This is one channel that has informed as such. But the statement of the Western Theater Command by Chanchuli today, talking about this particular incident on the 15th of June, raises the ante. It certainly makes 2 or 3 points. First, it reasserts for the second time since this thing started that Galwan Valley, that China exercises sovereignty over the Galwan Valley and done so for a long time. Secondly, it accuses our troops of violating the, as they put it, actual line of control, going back and forth repeatedly and violating. And thirdly, it wants us to discipline our frontline troops and see that they behave and abide by the consensus that has been reached. So it's a stern statement. I think when details are out of how many people are injured or killed on Chinese side, when the details are out here as to what has happened, temperatures are likely to probably even get raised. But let me make one comment also about the meeting itself. I think let us not underplay the fact or try to be diplomatic. Let us put it as it is that our officers went there under a prearranged program to go and see or work out the modalities of disengagement by the Chinese at a certain point.
But the Chinese turned around and became aggressive, and Colonel Arasan Singh, that's the point. The point is it was a predetermined conversation that was going to take place, that there were predetermined positions of de-escalation that had been decided. But yesterday, from the reports that we've got, it is the commanding officer and 2 soldiers with him who were actually following the Chinese, who were to recede from that point, and suddenly they turned around with stones and iron rods and attacked the commanding officer. I want to ask you, Colonel Arasan Singh, who's the aggressor and what's the game in the Chinese putting out the statement making India the aggressor?
Mr. Ranade was my senior and a very adept China hand. He's one of the best China minds in the country, let me tell you. But nevertheless, you asked me a question, why this aggressive behavior? वो आपने को एडवर्टीजमेंट देखा होगा कि सारे घर के बदल डालूंगा, सारे घर के बल्ब बदल डालूंगा, है ना? So under this, biological warfare, they're all through, in the East China Sea, and in the Indian Ocean, and with regard to India, Vietnam, they are just behaving in a manner ki sare badal dalunga. And for God's sake, we have been talking of pivot of Asia for such a long time. Now the pivot of Asia is in full play. The Americans were not fools who relocated the 60% of their war waging assets into the East China Sea. And I remember a few years back, I told the Americans in one of the meetings here in USI, I told them that should you abandon the security of Japan, South Korea, Taiwan and other countries, you cease to be a superpower. And somewhere, because of the imperatives of geography, the Indian Ocean is connected with the South China Sea. And that is why, Asia Pacific was called the Indian Ocean. So please look at it in the larger this thing. Now it is also a matter of prestige. If the Chinese were to go down, the China-Pakistan economic corridor, is finished. This Belt Road initiative finished. And as far as personalities are concerned, let me tell you, I find both this North Korean fellow and Xi Jinping, same megalomaniac behavior.
Absolutely.
So here you are dealing with
I think what you're saying, Colonel Arasan, is spot on. We would like to be hearing from you later in the evening also as we get a statement
Rahul,
from the MA. But breaking news coming in, Navika.
Before we go to that one,
okay.
I have some breaking news coming in. The latest details that we are getting from the Defence Ministry is that there will be a statement coming in from the Army. This could be late evening or maybe even tomorrow morning. That's the latest.
So this suspense is going to continue.
The suspense carries on.
What is it on the
evening
ground that is happening, that is delaying the statement? That becomes the multi-million
so the situation as far as the standoff at Ladakh is concerned, I think with this becomes even more grave and sensitive, and we are not
you heard it first here on the Explosive Exclusive. Before we end, viewers, I'm under pressure to take this break. Low cost dexamethasone, the Oxford University has told us reduces death by up to 1/3 in hospitalized patients with severe respiratory complications of COVID-19. Let's change the breaking news plate to that big news. In March 2020, the recovery randomized evaluation of COVID-19 therapy trial was established as a randomized clinical trial. I think the director has got the wrong breaking news plate on air right now. If you could just change it, Shashi ji, it would be wonderful. Thank you very much. The Oxford University making an important announcement, viewers. Important in the current context. Delhi is going through a bit of a problem. India is going through a bit of a problem right now. What we can tell you is that low-cost dexamethasone is a drug that is thought to be working on some of those that have critical severe respiratory complications of COVID-19. At least 1/3 of those hospitalized patients have recovered and reduced the death rates in those. In March 2020, the recovery trial was established as a randomized clinical trial to test a range of potential treatments for COVID-19, including low-dose dexamethasone. Over 11,500 patients have been enrolled from over 175 NHS hospitals in the UK. On 8th June, recruitment to the dexamethasone arm was halted since. In view of the trial steering committee, sufficient patients have been enrolled to establish whether or not the drug had a meaningful benefit, and it seems that it actually does. We will leave it at that.
Well, both news will be followed up here, the COVID cure as well as the fact that the Indian government, the army really, to make a statement probably later tonight or even early tomorrow morning. Both situations of the developing stories follow on Times Now. Don't go anywhere. The Explosive Exclusive will always bring you the inside news, the big investigations and news that is breaking from the corridors of power. Rahul and I sign off today. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place.